Or what would you say to kind of describe the story to kind of really draw people in who have never heard about the series before?
Oh, great. So my quick elevator pitch is always, it's kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? It's sort of magical martial arts that kind of use elements to bend. So that's my overall umbrella for what kind of story it is. But in terms of the characters and the plot, the main character, first book is called Unsold. So the main character is Unsold. He's the only person in his society who can't use their martial arts magic. And so this is about a story of him learning and growing and becoming stronger in that magic as he adventures and deals with higher and higher stakes until eventually he's punching Godzilla-sized monsters in the face. That's the journey.
Pitch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
And I'm glad you're reading it with your family, because that's one of the things when I started writing. When we were teenagers, we would read a bunch of stories with our family together. And that was one of the big things that influenced Cradle, because I was always looking for fantasy novels that I would really enjoy, but that I could also enjoy with my family and we could read out loud together. And so I tried to write Cradle as that kind of series.
What's it like to be here at Comic-Con?
Oh, it's overwhelming.
What's the experience been like? What are you feeling?
So it's really incredible because I just took pictures on the Comic-Con backdrop, right? Like I've seen that on IMDb and on the internet. So it's like it's surreal to kind of be here. And of course, I've been to a lot of conventions, but this is so big. There's so many, the vendor hall, the traffic, the people attending. It really is overwhelming. And the idea that I'm going to be on a panel with Phil Lamar, isn't that weird? That's just crazy. I didn't believe that as recently as 5 minutes ago. So that's So that's actually pretty interesting. So that was our original intention, was we were going to do a 1-to-1 translation of the first book in a 90-minute animatic, and that was what we were able to fund through the Kickstarter. So 90-minute animatic, and so we were trying to do a 1-to-1 adaptation of the first book. But as we were developing it, we realized there's a fan favorite character who only shows up in book 2, and we wanted more roles because we had voice actors who were excited to be on the project, and they were great. So we wanted more voice roles than there are in book 1. So we decided, okay, can we do both books 1 and 2 in one 90-minute story? And I'm working on the screenplay adaptation, and I'm going, I don't know, let's find out. So we did the best we could, or I did the best I could, to compress book 1 into 45 minutes and compress book 2 into 45 minutes and try to cover both of those in 90 minutes. And that was a very interesting screenwriting experience. But so as a result, what we try to do is take you through the stories of books 1 and 2. Now, fortunately, those are the 2 shortest books. So that's something I could do. Once you start getting into book 3, it starts getting a lot more expansive. Well, one of the challenges I had was just getting it into 45 minutes. So that was the initial challenge. But there were several other challenges, one of which was, in a novel, you have a lot more time for nuance. There's a lot more, I can give even the characters that are bullies or the characters that are villains, I can give them some scenes where they're just regular people, or some lines where they're regular people. So you can sort of intuit that these are not just there to be enemies to the main character. They have their own lives. They fit into the culture somehow. In an animatic, you've got to take just, when you're working with 90 minutes, you've got to take just their most important lines and scenes and actions, and then that leaves a lot of the nuance on the cutting room floor. So one example I used a minute ago was we had some bully characters who were bullying the main character at the beginning of the first book. And in the book, I kind of have some nuance to them. You get to know them, you know why they're doing what they're doing. But in 90 minutes, you don't have time to cover all that. So, and plus, one of our voice actresses had a really awesome bully take for one of the characters, and it sounded really great. So now she's just a straight up bully, right? She's just, and that's one of those things where I was like, if we could nuance that up a little bit, I would. But it was such a great take on the character, and it doesn't affect, it still falls in line with the core story, right? So because of that, we left it the way it was, and I think it's going to be a great experience in the animatic, but different than it was in the book. So one of the things I learned when I wrote my first trilogy, I didn't think I could afford to hire a real audiobook reader, so I read them myself. So we set up a booth in my house, and I pinned up blankets to the walls and was in a little recording booth. So I read those myself, and as I was reading them, I sort of learned a lot about my writing style and how it hits the ear. And that helped me kind of adjust my writing style. And I went, oh, this works in print when you can see the words, but some things, they sound awkward or they sound confusing. So I started writing that way. And then for Cradle, we started getting Travis Baldry, who narrates my books and is one of the main voice actors in this project. And he was asking me about the voices for characters and how to pronounce things. And when I was hearing his takes on the characters, I went, oh, this is my new headcanon for how these characters sound, right? So then that impacts how I write them after that, once he reads them. And then I'm now translating them for other voice actors to do. And I'm on the call with these voice actors, and I'm giving them my thoughts on their takes. Now, of course, the voice actors we got were so amazing. Most of the time, my takes were just like, "You're awesome," but I'm giving them my thoughts. But then we get to some lines that I had to change what I wrote because of the way they're reading it. I'm now hearing it differently, and that was a very interactive, collaborative experience that helped me a lot, and I loved it. I was like, it's way better to get the take of someone else, and they represent what I put on the page, but then they elevate it also. That's been great.
Really? And to build on that, I mean, you vividly and meticulously like build out your scenes to the point where when we're seeing the concept arts, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I pictured this
Great.
to be.
Yeah.
So you're nailing that thing. So are there any specific scenes or characters that you were particularly excited to see animated? Just because of how deep you go into describing every little piece of grass or how how people are feeling and things.
Yeah, there were a few scenes that I really am very excited to see fleshed out. One of them is in the sizzle reel, which will be fully animated. The full 90-minute project won't be. But the sizzle reel, which is kind of a custom trailer we made, that is fully animated. And one of the scenes that's in there is one of the ones that and it's one of the first ones fans ask about, and it's one of the first ones I pictured, which is about halfway through the first book, the main character dies. He's killed about halfway through. And then he is then brought back to life by effectively an angel from space, right? So that whole thing just sort of flips your conception on its head of what kind of world you're working in. And I really, really, really wanted to see that in animation. And Lex and Otis and Jay and his team, they really brought it to life. And it's in there, and you get to see. So one of the things is he gets like slapped in half by a villain, and he really gets torn in half. So that's in the sizzle reel, right? Like you get to see that detail, and that was just like I pictured it. And that was one that brought me to tears as I saw it for the first time. I was like, wow, that's really it. That's something I made up.
Yeah.
That's now real on the screen. It's incredible. When you ask Saturday morning cartoons, the first ones I think of, and these are kind of a little bit apart, are the Batman and Superman shows, the DC animated universe. And Jackie Chan Adventures was the first thing. Those were the two things that popped into my head first. Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that.
That's just, I don't know. Those were the first two things I thought of. And then in terms of breakfast cereal, it's Lucky Charms. It's got to be Lucky Charms. You know it. Yeah. The funny thing is, not directly, maybe indirectly, because again, that's the first thing that subconsciously bubbled up, so maybe. But directly, no, I don't think there was any sort of necessary. Maybe that's what got me interested in the Chinese fiction I read to then inspire Unsold. That could be that. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks,
you so
guys.
much. Yeah, we
Great to
appreciate
meet
you
you
so much. Thank you for all the
good to
great
meet you, everybody.
stories.
Thanks.
Thank you.